I think my question's about clarity, but the actual question's a little unclear, so maybe you can help me with that. We were just talking before the break about if you understand that you can create whatever you want, but you're kind of generally happy where you are and you're a little stuck in figuring out what you really want, how do you unstick yourself?
Well, here's the thing that's most interesting. You don't have to figure out what you really want, because what you really want has been put incrementally into this vortex. In fact, nobody could really define with much precision what's there, because you've been putting it there piece by piece, and the details of it have come about through so much interaction with life that there is an essence there of what you want that in many ways is indescribable. So it is enough to just keep yourself on thoughts that feel pretty good, so that you allow the vortex to take you in where you will discover then the details. So now this is really good. We haven't been here before. A lot of what you think are new ideas occurring to you are just your allowing old ideas that it would be sort of like, and this is a bulky analogy, but you'll get it. It would be like on one day putting a little flour in, and it not being meaningful except you put flour in, and on one day you put some eggs in, and it doesn't mean anything except you put some eggs in, and on one day you put some cinnamon in, and it doesn't mean, and then one day you go in there and you have this great idea for a pie or for a cake. And it's because you put all of the ingredients in there, and now you're in there where you can feel the vibration of it. It occurs to you, and it couldn't occur to you if you hadn't put the ingredients that's in there. So a lot of what you were calling from scratch creating is actually happening as you discover what you have already been putting in there. So that was the long answer to say more succinctly, you don't have to identify with precision. You don't have to state your goals and reclaim them and identify them and write them down with great detail. But what is necessary is that you are not continually offering contradictory thought to the well-being that you are seeking. Another way that we like to say it is, use whatever subject you can find that easily and quickly gets you into the vortex, and use it as your excuse to be in there where you can now discover what you really want.
Okay.
Did you get that? Because what you really want is in there, and as you said, you can't really define it, because from outside the vortex, where most of you are, often you can't see it, you can't define it, and trying to define it often is counterproductive. It just holds you out there longer because you feel like you can't define it. So just use any excuse in the world that you can use to get in there, and then it will occur to you.
So I think I've actually experienced that in one aspect of my life, and haven't quite been able to carry it over. A couple of years ago, I was walking down the street and found a $20 bill and thought, really, we're just tossing 20s now? And so I decided to start keeping track of how much money I could find, like what abundance was out there that maybe we were overlooking. So I'm a nerd, and I kept track of it on a spreadsheet because it just seemed to make sense that way. So I would pick up pennies and nickels and dimes, whatever I found, and I did that for about 4 months until someone started saying, well, what are you doing? And brought me her money, and then other friends made fun of me, but then brought me their money, until pretty soon I had strangers giving me pennies they'd found, and it was up to, all of a sudden when I looked in the bank, I'm like, wow, it's $500. And so I have this, like, where I was just penny, a penny, a penny, and I wasn't paying attention, kind of like your cinnamon and your eggs, and then all of a sudden I had this money and I was doing stuff with it.
Good analogy.
And I'm like, why can't I carry that over into my professional life? Like, how is it so much harder? I'm doing things, and I guess maybe those are all my little pennies. Like, I'm going to classes and learning, but...
You can. Jerry and Esther have a friend who they really like being with, because she laughs easily, and she just feels fresh, and always looks fresh, and is interesting to talk with, no matter what the conversation. And she's very helpful. Esther just adores this woman. And as they got to know her, she's fairly new in their experience. She lives in California, near where they live, there, when they are there, which is rare. And she said she really, 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 really likes her walk on the beach. She really likes that. And she puts it first before everything. She puts it before a meeting with Jerry and Esther. She puts it before something that one of her children need. She puts it before something that her husband needs. She puts it before everything. She puts this, what some would call luxurious hour, ahead of everything else. And so very soon after Jerry and Esther got to know her, they knew that if they asked to meet her during such and such a time, the answer was going to be, how about later after my such and such? So she trained them into expecting her to do what mattered most to her. And it was a little while before Esther put the two together. One of the nicest people I know, one of the happiest people I know, one of the friskiest people I know, one of the fittest people I know, one of the best feeling people I know. In other words, she's selfish enough to do the thing that puts her in the vortex early in the day. And then the rest of her day, even though she is spinning many, many plates, she has many children and much responsibility with her mate. In other words, there's a lot going on in her life. She's integrated into the lives of many people. But she stays true to who she is because she's selfish enough to do the thing early in the day that sets the tone for being in the vibration of her vortex, which then allows her the calm and the clarity and the resources and the stamina and the vitality and the niceness and the humor and the fun and the intellect to do everything else that she needs or wants to do. And we really think that this is the conversation that we want to have here. In other words, go to the vortex and then anything else you have time for. Go to the vortex and anything else you have time for. And if it takes you a week to get in the vortex, then it was a week well spent. And if it takes you a week to really figure out how to get in there steadily, and we know you do often, but we just want to point out to you that you have the resources to align with that vibrational reality. And when you consistently do that, then these kinds of conversations you won't even be discussing, because everything falls into place once you're consistently doing that. Because even Esther knows all of this stuff, but Esther will put you ahead of her almost every single time. In other words, if Esther's in a bathroom and needs to really go, and somebody comes in who looks like they need to go more, Esther always says, go right ahead. In other words, if there's someone in the grocery store line who seems a little urgent, Esther will always say, I have so much, go right ahead. In other words, she's always looking for a way to allow someone what they need, and we want Esther and all of the rest of you to care so much about what you need in the fullest sense of the word, which is alignment to all that you are, that you selfishly put that first. So if we were standing in any of your shoes, or all of your shoes, we would make a list of the things we like the most. And we would prioritize them in terms of the things that we like the most. And we would make sure that we do plenty of them early in every single day. And we would selfishly announce to everyone else in our life, you come first after me. And mean it. In other words, I'm going to get in the vortex and then I'll be right with you. I'm going to be in the vortex and then I'll be right with you. Hold that thought. I'm going to the vortex. I'll be back in an hour.
So if I can get in the vortex and just keep doing the things that feel good, it doesn't necessarily matter that I can't see the connection right now.
Getting in the vortex, doing the things that you love to do will get you in the vortex also. They work hand in hand. But it is our promise to you that as you put more emphasis upon how it feels to be in the vortex, and you spend more time, in other words, you know how you can feel, you know those moments of elation, don't you get them every now and again? Esther will find one creeping up on her first thing in the morning when they're first out on the highway, and she's getting her first real conscious look at this beautiful new day, and she'll feel the magnitude of the beauty of the planet and the consistency of the roadways that carry them, and she feels the stability and the beauty of the bus that she's driving and the harmony of her relationship and the work that they are doing. It just sort of wells up in her, and she'll just feel that elation for a moment. Well, when something like that happens to you, stay there and milk it. The other day they were in a hotel room somewhere that was so pleasing, and they sat for several minutes one morning and try to identify with each other, what was it about that room that made it feel so good? You think it's that? Yeah, probably that. You think it's that? Yeah, probably that too. You think it's that? Yeah, probably that too. In other words, just milking it, just focusing upon pleasing things for no good reason other than the all good reason of practicing the vibration of in the vortex. Because when things are going well, that's when you want to practice the vibration. We haven't talked much about that. We keep saying, get in the vortex, get in the vortex, get in the vortex. We want to add to that, get in there and stay in the vortex, practice in the vortex, milk the vortex, make yourself almost silly about your appreciation of the vortex until you have really nailed down the in the vortex vibration. And then impulses occur. You get these intuitions and inspirations and just sensations about being there and doing that. Really, the universe, while it is full of information, you can't translate all of the components. In other words, for example, let's say you're on your way to a wonderful relationship that's been in the vortex for a while. And as you're on your way to this relationship, you haven't been beating the drum of it because you've been basking on all the other things that keep you there. And that we're speaking for a consensus that we can feel throughout this room. And as you, so the universe has all cooperative components aligned. But in order for that information to be translated to you in the way you seem to want to hear it, what you would like is an itinerary from universe that knows, that says, 704, get in your car. Turn left at the corner and go down that street and stop at this light, but stay there longer than usual. Pretend that your car is stalled, because if you will stay there longer than usual and you don't make that turn, you will rendezvous at the precise time of turning the corner, and you will arrive at the parking lot that you are going to at the precise moment that somebody will get out of the car. They will drop something on the ground. You won't know what it is, but you will take just enough time to stop and pick it up and offer it to them, and that has no real meaning for you, except that it slowed you down just enough that when you go around the next corner and push the button on the elevator, the person of your dreams will be standing right there. Well, not only are most of you not receiving clearly enough to translate the vivid detail of all of that, you would challenge it on every front. Which corner? How fast? How long? What do I do? What do I do? Who's going to drop the paper? What's it going to say? I really don't need to know about the paper. That has no meaning to me. Which elevator? Which button? Who's going to be standing there? What's he going to be wearing? In other words, where if you will just get in the vortex, those impulses, the impulse will be, in other words, Esther will say to Jerry, because they drive this 45-foot bus, which is long enough, but it's very tall too. So trees and bridges and things like that. And because of the towing situation, they tow their Tahoe behind it. They can't back up. It's one way only, which means you want to be sure where you're going before you go there. Because if you get in a jam, you're going to have to unhook the car, which isn't easy unless everything's nice and straight out. And so it's a little tense from time to time. And so Esther will say, as she's got 2 different navigational systems programmed almost everywhere she goes, just to make sure that she has plenty of options going. She also has Jerry looking in the exit guide and reading the map. And she'll say to Jerry, now, especially when they're going to a campground, which often has off-the-road instructions and isn't in the navigational system, she'll say to Jerry, now tell me again, and Jerry will say, you're going to take exit 33, which is highway 347. You're going to go south, which is left, across the overpass. You're going to go 1/4 of a mile, and then you're going to turn right. And then he will say, don't make me tell you again, you're not going to remember any of that. What he wants her to do is just let him give her the turn right before she needs to make it. But Esther wants to know what all the turns are going to be. She wants to get an image in her mind of what all of the turns are going to be. And they've been playing this game for the 10 years they've been on the road in these big buses, because Esther keeps thinking she needs to know all of the turns, and Jerry knows she's not going to remember more than just one at a time. And that's what Source wants you to know. We've got all the turns. The turn list is really well established. We know exactly where you are at all times in relationship to where you want to be. and we are feeding you a constant impulse, that when you get in the vortex and you begin to trust that the impulse is the right impulse, then you're not second guessing yourself, you're just going with the flow.